Welcome to Understanding Your Audience, brought to you by Microsoft Learning. Today we're going to talk about the keys to getting your participants engaged. My name is Sherry Oswald, and I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer. The topics in this lesson include personality types, learning styles, and engagement. These three things are key for who you're working with and how you're going to teach them within their environment. So to translate, when I talk about personalities, learning styles, and engagement, what I'm really talking about are these: who they are, how they learn, and how to get them engaged in the learning process. Let's start with personalities. Who they are. Are they introverts, extroverts, or something in between? In the past, you may have participated in one of the many personality type tools that kind of figure out who you are. One of those, for example, is the Myers-Briggs. Are you an ESTJ? Are you an ENFP? Who knows? And trying to figure that out in one day of class can be very difficult. So let's simplify that a little bit. I actually was a communication major in college. And at that time, I thought everybody communicated, learned, and spoke like I did. Lucky for you, that is completely wrong. Out of all the personality type tools, there are two things that always seem to come up, and that is your introverts and your extroverts. The extremes of these types of personalities are pretty easy to identify, but I think in reality, all of us kind of fall somewhere in between. So let's talk about the difference between introverts and extroverts. How do you spot an introvert? Introverts typically sit in the back of the room. You're going to find them back there thinking and pondering and tend to be a little bit quiet. They prefer to be in smaller groups over larger groups and learn very well by watching. We'll talk a little bit about learning styles in a minute. They also prefer individualized challenges over group activities. On the flip side, you have extroverts. Extroverts usually sit in the front of the room, and they tend to be a little bit more on the talkative side. They are certainly more comfortable in larger groups than in smaller groups, and they learn well by doing. You will probably find them volunteering to be the leader in your group activities. Is one of those better than the other? Absolutely not. We all are different, and that's a good thing. If we were all the same, life would be pretty boring. The trick is finding the balance. You need to create an environment where your introverts are able to think and ponder, and your extroverts are able to talk and interact. This can be pretty tricky sometimes, especially when you have a mix of all of those personalities in the same room. Balancing all of that can be difficult, so let's talk about some of the extreme examples. You could get stuck in a room full of introverts. A lot of them think, but they don't do very much talking. And in that case, it's like you're talking to the wall. Anyone? Anyone? Now you could go to the other extreme, where you have a room full of extroverts who like to talk, who kind of take things over. And that makes it very difficult to get through your content sometimes. In a worst case scenario, you might have that extrovert that completely takes everything over. And then nobody can get a word in edgewise, and everybody else feels checked out. Next, let's talk about how they learn. There are three basic learning styles. You're either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Although most people have some degree of each one of these learning styles, most of us have a primary learning style that we gravitate toward. For visual learners, it's important to include vivid colors and pictures, symbols or icons, and then demonstrations and videos, things that catch their eye. Infographics are really starting to get more popular, and that's another great technique as well. Auditory learners prefer to have verbal explanation. Again, they also like demonstrations and videos because it also engages their hearing. Key phrases, acronyms, and auditory patterns are other great ways of catching their attention. And finally, kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners use hands-on activities, simulations, demonstrations, as well as interactive activities. Activities where they actually participate and get to practice. This is what's going to get their attention and help them to consolidate their learning. So what is the recipe for success? How can we reach all three types of learners in the same environment? We need to capture the attention of not only our visual learners, our auditory learners, and our kinesthetic learners, but also those that kind of fall in between. To accomplish that, and to use a technical term, we need to find a mashup between the three. By incorporating all of those elements into our training, we're going to get the crossover and hopefully be able to reach each of those types of learners within our class. Finally, how do we get them engaged? Engagement is the key. If your participants feel involved in the learning process, they're actually going to retain more. Let's talk about some of the ways that we can do that. You always want to include pre-class communication. Things you want to share like the prerequisites for the class, the objectives, the logistics. By giving them introductory communication, you'll start to get them involved and excited and feeling a part of the class. Next, we have pre-tests and assessments. What do they need to know? Provide very clear information about any prerequisite knowledge that they need to have so that they're successful on the day of the class. Any pre-tests or assessments are always good to share as well. And then, reading resources, what to share. Pre-reading materials are always good. Maybe even give them a preview of the courseware so they can review it ahead of time. As the instructor, it's important to know who your audience is, who they are, how they learn, and incorporate ways to get them engaged in learning. These three elements will help ensure the success of your class. In short, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Again, my name is Sherry Oswald, and I thank you for joining me. I hope that you're enjoying the series.